creative industries as well. So artists might want to create really wacky things that they were unable to do physically. You can do different things in virtual reality as well. So that's the first case study. The second case study is, again, through VR, and again, it's about training, but this is for our policing degree. So as part of the police training, they do what's called SOCOs, Scene of Crime Officer. So that's someone, if there's been a crime, they would go out to the crime scene, they would analyse the crime scene, they might take fingerprints, they might swab for blood and DNA, they might retrieve some items, those kinds of things. And that takes a lot of training as well. So what we did, working with our policing programme and working with the local police force in Lincolnshire, we developed a CSI crime scene virtual reality training tool. So I'll quickly just play this video through, and this should show what that looks like. So the idea for this was, it was a house, so we could do things like burglaries, break-ins, trespassing, more sinister crimes, murders, beatings, those kinds of things as well. And what we could do in the house is we could move objects, move items, turn the sofas over, throw books on the floor. We could create different scenes that we wanted. So every time a student went into the VR system, it would be different. Now, again, physically, they'd still have to go through the physical training, but they wouldn't have to do as much of that. They wouldn't have to do the prep and the planning and understanding the process by which they have to go through in order to analyse a crime scene. So we can do all that through the VR training. What it means is, it takes a lot of time to get officers through SOCO training. When they're doing it physically, you've got to set up the environment. So usually it's in a room like this that might be temporarily converted to a bedroom or to a kitchen or to whatever the kind of scene is they want to do. That takes time to set up, and then the trainee would come in, they would analyse, and then you've got to reset it all, and that takes time to reset it all as well. If you want to try a different configuration, that takes more time. Now, the police tell us that when they're doing physical training with their officers, they get about 6 or 7 officers through a day. Now that's not a lot, 6 or 7 people a day to do all this kind of training. Through VR, we can have multiple VR systems running simultaneously. You only need a space probably about as big as this to simulate an entire house. And with a click of a button, we can change the scenario. But also, what the officers really liked about what our system would do, and I'll talk a bit more about it in another video in a second, is they could change the crime scene on the fly. So they were sat at the computer and they could actually say, no, change it, move this object over there, or have someone run into the back kitchen, a burglar or someone coming to do something. So they could make it more interactive, more engaging, and improve that performance. So this was taken live to some of the police forces within the UK and was being used by those police forces to train their crime scene officers, but also on the policing degrees at the university, they were using it as well for training the students, for assessing the students, so their exams would be done through this VR system. And the students really kind of quite liked it. So before I just finish on that talk, I'll show you a bit more of a broader video, just to give an idea of what that looks like. So you can see, right, great. Yeah. So this is the house. So we'll put the headset on. Can you see it? Whoa, too low. There we go. Is that better? Okay. So what the student would do with this is they would put the headset on. This is where they're picking the headset up and they're putting it on so they get acclimatized. Not much kind of going on in the garden. Everything we did was inside the house. Before they go in, there's a billboard at the side, which we should see in a second when this changes round, which shows them the process that they've got to go through. They've got to make sure they put their clean outfit on. So there we go, task 1, task 2. Pause that video. Like a game? Yeah, absolutely. So they quite enjoyed it because they thought it was kind of really like a game as well. But what we found as well is obviously the younger kids that were going through the training really adapted to it quite quickly because it felt very much like a game for them.
Very exciting.
So this video is not very well edited because it is just a live video of me just going through and showing someone a demo of the video. So on the table there's the toolbox, and that contains all the items that an officer would need. So a fingerprint brush, a camera, scene markers, And then there's the task of what they've got to do. So task 1, they've got to gather a fingerprint, it kind of lays out. And this is what they get when they're doing the physical training. They get a sheet from the instructor that says, go and gather some fingerprints, go and do some blood swabs, go and do some analysis. So they kind of get that in there. We can change that with the click of a button. We have about 50 different scenarios set up, which is far more than the 4 that the police force had.
Do they have any pros and cons? This technique has a pros and cons?
As what, sorry?
So, did you get any feedback from the physical training and
Yeah, so the physical training was, I'll talk about as we go through, because I'll show some of the issues, but yeah, I'll remember that question when I go through, I'll show some of that. So it's not perfect, it's still in development. So you pick up the toolbox and you carry that with you into the house. So you kind of, because you're obviously in a small room, you tell them what in the house, you point where you want to go. I think we go into the kitchen first. So you can see at the back, you saw that, there's some broken glass on the floor. So what they said about some of the kind of cons to this were, it wasn't as realistic as a physical scene. So a physical scene, the glass would be a lot more scattered. The blood would look a lot more realistic, but this was more about training the students for the process. They'd still have to do physical crime scene analysis, but they'd have a better understanding of how that works when they go into that. So the positives from the students were, when they did the physical training, they were much better prepared, so they didn't need as much physical training, it didn't take as long to do the actual physical training.
It means first they have to do that, and then they will do the physical one.
Absolutely. So they would do normally, so you can see there with the UV on the fingerprint, if you saw that, so you scan the UV torch, and it picked up the fingerprint, there you go. Your UV torch on the footprint. So you've got all your items in the box, you put your UV camera back, you get your fingerprint brush, you dust it, and the fingerprints start to show a bit better. The lighting's not too great here, but and then you would take photographs, do all that kind of thing. So what the students would do is, when they're just doing the physical training, they have to do the kind of pre-training, which is, this is what the room looks like, this is how you use the different tools, all those kinds of things. And then they have to run several different scenarios. They probably spend a couple of weeks doing all the different scenarios to get their head around it. With this, they could do it at university, at home, they could do it anywhere as much as they wanted, without having to book the training room, without having to go to have the training room set up. So resource-wise, it was a lot more efficient, but it gave them the opportunity to do a lot more than they could have done in the training room. So then those students that then went on to do the physical training needed much less physical training to be at the same standard as they would have needed. So it gave them that edge. So you put C markers down, you can take a picture. The pictures that were taken by the virtual camera created real images on the computer so that they could submit them to their assignment. Yeah, so they could submit them to their assessment, and then the instructor would say, well, you didn't take a photo of this, you didn't take a photo of that, all those kinds of things as well. So we created the physical photos for them. Yeah, so, and then there's an upstairs as well, as I think it's a nice posh 4-bedroom house, it's quite nice. It took us a while to make it. And yeah, and then you go around the house, look for other kind of evidence. But then we could reset it instantly, so you'd have that kind of reset, or you could change the scenario instantly. So there's some blood, I think, on the side there. Yeah, there you go. So there's some scissors. So you'd take the scissors as evidence, you'd put it in an evidence bag, you'd swab the blood. So all those things would be as realistic as we could make it in VR, but it would get the students ready for how this works.
So normally how much time it takes, like 1 year, or how much time it takes to train someone?
Several weeks. So
several weeks.
Yeah, several weeks.
And do you give any licenses for them, or do you update this thing?
So this hasn't been updated for about a year now, because it was a project we did a couple of years ago, which is you know, we'd like to kind of carry it on, but just resource-wise. So the police are still using it. Lincolnshire Humberside Police, so that's Lincoln, the university I used to work at, and also Hull, so they're using it still. I've moved across west to Yorkshire area, so I'm speaking to the police officers there to see what they want to do, whether we update the system, whether we create new systems. But it is still being used by some police forces. And it's, yeah, there's no license for it at the minute. So if you want a copy, you can share a copy. So, that's the first presentation. Any questions?
So, John, quick one. How long did it take for you to develop something like this?
Right, so that particular entire project took about 4 months with one RA. working on it for his master's thesis. So we had a student doing a master's, and as part of his master's thesis, he created that project. And it took him about 4 months of coding, and then the other kind of 8 months were doing the experiments, doing the analysis, working out how efficient it was versus physical training, and then he submitted his thesis for his master's. So it's about 4 months of pure development by a single individual. So, yeah. So it's in Unity. Unity is pretty straightforward to use, pretty straightforward to develop in. If you've kind of got a handle on Unity, then you know, you can put things together quite quickly. The assets, so the, you know, the house, the sofas, all the objects we bought from an asset store, so we can develop those assets. And there's so many things available, royalty free or license paid, all that kind of stuff. So we bought, you know, the sofa, the TV, and the kitchen, and all that kind of stuff, like modelling a new house and putting it all in. But then all the mechanics behind it, getting it all to work, getting all the fingerprint, the cameras, the photographs, the C markers, the environment, it took about 4 months of development work.
And as a follow-up, quick one. So let's say if I'm a maths teacher and I am new to VR, how can I adapt this to improve my teaching? Especially if I have no knowledge about it. What would be your recommendation? Where do I start?
To use VR to adapt teaching?
Yes.
Yeah, so you need to think of a kind of, you know, it depends on the scenario that you're working in. So a good example of maths that I saw, I had a project student, this is years ago now, developed a simulator on the moon. So when you adjusted gravity, you played golf, and however much you adjust gravity changed obviously how far the ball would go, the resistance and all that kind of stuff, and then you could work out with formulas based on your gravity, based on how hard you hit the ball, what you think the distance it's going to travel is, and then you could do it in VR and test it. So that was a project the student did quite a few years ago. Quite a nice little project, took them a couple of months to do as part of their final year undergrad. So it's just your imagination kind of really is what you know, kind of want to think about. The development work is getting easier and easier. So to develop in VR, there's so many toolkits around, there's so many packages and tutorials. It doesn't take that long to put something like this together. So this was a master's student. The student that developed this had got some experience previously because he built the virtual VoG system for us. So that took him about a year because he was very new to VR. But then to build that took 4 months. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward to kind of do now. Unity, Unreal. So if you're familiar with these different engines, there's 2 main game engines. There are some others that don't get used as much, but there's Unreal, which is a lot more complicated and complex and is used a lot more by film industries and TV and stuff like that. And then there's Unity, which is the one I prefer because it gives you good results, but it's a lot easier to do. It's a lot easier to use. It's not as nice as you know, physical, realistic as Unreal in terms of the lighting and the textures, but it looks good enough, right? So.
If your master students are doing such type of work, such interesting work, what's about your PhD students?
Wow, there we go. Yeah.
Fun.
They're doing
Yeah.
super futuristic stuff. Yeah, I must say, the master's student that did this was very good.
Yeah.
He was a very good student.
Yeah.
We wanted him to do a PhD, but he went to work for GCHQ, so yeah, so we can't talk more about that, unfortunately.
It's very impressive.
Yeah, so any other questions on the VR stuff? If not, I'll move on to, just a couple of times, I'll move on to the other talk. Okay. Obviously happy to share slides, videos.
Yes, please.
If you want the tool, I can share the tool with you,
Yes, please.
so you can take that home. This particular one only works on the HTC Vive. We haven't developed it for the Oculus. It could be developed and ported to the Oculus. At the time we developed this a couple of years ago, the Oculus didn't really exist, so we did it on the HTC Vive. But yeah, there's no reason why it can't work on an Oculus with a bit of code development. Okay.
I think you are very good.
Thank you.
It's fun.
It is, it's really fun. I do enjoy it a lot. Just close that slice. Oh, that's my So, what I'm going to kind of present now is another project we're doing. This is a current live project that I'm doing at the university.
George, I have a question.
Sure, yeah, fire away.
So, a couple of questions,
Yeah.
basically. So, this VR is very good for
Yeah.
for tutorial kind of a thing for education or training. So have you ever think about it that it can be used to develop some resources for the schools or universities and colleges to do some experiments out there?
What kind of experiments do you think?
I mean, it's a chemistry maybe.
Okay.
Okay, so it's two solutions.
Yeah. So yeah, there are VR systems that exist that will do that, that will do chemistry experiments. There's no reason why you couldn't do it. It's just building the scene. You have to put the physics behind it, so you have to know what the chemicals are, what the expected reaction is going to be. But there's no reason why you can't build those kinds of things in VR. So, for example, another VR project I'm working on, part of my kind of main research interest is autonomous systems and AI trust, how we build trust in AI systems. And so I built a VR system for driverless cars, and we're evaluating the effect of people's perceptions when a driverless vehicle crashes versus when a human driver crashes. And we're doing that in VR as well, for obvious reasons. We don't want to put people in the car and crash them away. So we built a simulator that does that. So you can sit in this virtual car, either as the driver, as the passenger with a driver, or as the passenger in an autonomous car, and experience simulations of going too fast, crashing, accidents, those kinds of things. So yeah, pretty much with VR, it's used in all sorts of different areas. But what the thing is, I think is what you said, which is really prominent for this, it's engaging and interesting, it gets the students excited, because the age they are, even up to 22, 23 at university, they're very much into gaming, they like the technology, and it kind of brings it into that world for them. So you might have a student that doesn't like, I think you said maths, didn't you? Doesn't like maths, and I don't like maths, why am I doing algebra? Put it into VR, yeah, I want to do some algebra, because it's exciting, you're playing golf on the moon, working out vectors and trajectories based on the difference in gravity. You're learning maths, right? But you're doing it in an engaging, fun way, and I think that's what VR brings, which is why obviously we did the VoG was one of the first things we wanted to do. We wanted to be able to get kind of younger children excited about something that's considered old. When you think about a blacksmith, you think about old people, the 1900s, you think about kind of a long time ago, and we wanted to make people realise this is still a relevant process, it's a relevant field to work in, it's still needed, and how you can learn about it in an exciting way, which is why we built the VoG.
So there's another way. One side is that they are actually taking interest into the process and everything, right? So there's not like it would be like I'm thinking about it, if it's developed onto the lab scale or such kind of things, it will to economical, it will save a lot of resources. In terms of that, like in chemistry, we just pour the things, right, and it's $100 going to bin. So we can save that one. As well as it could be a very good resource. But unfortunately, what I can see is a lot of people are not working in that field to develop a resource for K-12 or higher education systems. So that area is quite great, but we are not expert into it. I'm sorry. So,
but the development cost.
Develop resource for that.
Well, the development cost for those kinds of areas isn't huge when you're doing it with this kind of technology, right? So there's apps out there have you used the HoloLens before? Have you seen the Microsoft HoloLens? So HoloLens have got a really good periodic table app where you can create compounds from the elements on the periodic table, and it generates all the molecules for you. So, and that didn't take long for the developer to create, that was a couple of weeks of development work. So this kind of stuff isn't massively resource intensive to create once you've got those skill sets. So, you can do your chemistry experiment, you can be, pouring chemicals, you can get someone to develop that. That same person could develop a mechanical materials testing simulator, shear strength and tensile strength. You can do that as well, because the technology to develop the systems is the same. They just would need to know from you as a chemistry teacher what happens when this reagent is poured into this chemical. What am I expecting to happen? You'd have to give them that prompt to know. Obviously, the system would know that. But the development work, people might say,
It's cost high price because there's some tools which develop on the lab base, but it's very it's costly.
Yeah, so buying to already exists. Obviously, people want to create that kind of
So
stuff.
that German companies develop that. The lab based things. It's very expensive.
It is. because they're doing it as a business. You know, this is not business. I'm
That's
a
why.
university, and I'm happy to share this because there's other people using my tools to try their training, and that's great. Gives us vision, you know, profile, right? It gives us kind of exposure. So yeah.
Very good.
Cool. Right. Okay. So just checking the time. Are we okay for time?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to talk a bit about this buzzword everyone's heard of, and everyone's probably sick of hearing about it at the minute, which is Gen AI, and how I'm using Gen AI at the university for engaging with students and supporting students. Before I do that, I think I'm just going to get the door locked, and I'm going to keep us in here for the next 3 hours, and I'm just going to talk about me. Because, I mean, there's no one else to talk about me, right? So I'm going to talk about me for about 3
Can you
hours.
record your lecture? This one?
Well, if you want, I like to do, yeah, go on. I like to talk about myself, so yeah, go for it. So I just thought I'd tell you a bit about my hobbies, a bit about my interests, before we talk about boring Gen AI stuff.
You look better.
It's a long time ago. Thanks.
You look young, yeah.
Look, younger here?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir. You know, yeah. Okay. How about that? How's that? So kicking the ball. I also do rock climbing and jump out of aeroplanes. Yeah. So I sent the picture on the left when I was jumping out of the airplane. Sent that to my mum. And I said, there I am on my way skydiving this week. And she said, why would you jump out of an aeroplane when it's got these things called wheels and it lands perfectly well on the ground? Valid point. Rock climbing, quite a dangerous hobby. I like to engage in dangerous hobbies. Yeah. Scuba diving. I do a bit of scuba diving, a bit of martial arts as well, just to keep you busy because rock climbing and jumping out of airplanes isn't enough. Yeah, it's all there, of course. Because, you know, I don't walk on the moon either. So, all those images, everything you saw there was generated by AI, right? And it made me look older in the pictures, apparently. So, you know, so they were all generated by AI. The kind of worrying thing is, maybe for some people, is to create all those images took just those 10 photographs. And those 10 photographs are available on my social media, right? You go to my Twitter or my Facebook, those pictures are there. So you can download those 10 pictures of me and generate me in weird scenarios. To the point where I sent a photo of myself jumping out of an aeroplane. Obviously, I didn't jump out of an aeroplane. To my mother, who thought it was me jumping out of an aeroplane. And that's her own child, and she thought the picture was real. So, but what this does mean is I think this changes the landscape a lot for some of our creative industries. So when I was Dean back at Sunderland, I was Dean of Business and Technology, which is quite a nice fusion of subject areas, I think, as we start to bring technology, data science, analytics into business and marketing and management and those kinds of subjects. Some of these areas, marketing, is quite a creative industry, all right? You've got to have that creative flair about you for photographs and composure and making sure you're getting the right lighting and techniques and those kinds of things. And I like to think of myself as quite a creative individual. I've got lots of imagination, but I'm terrible at anything artistic. I can't draw, I can't take decent photographs, I can't do anything like that, but I've got lots of ideas, lots of imagination. And AI is now a way to allow people to realize that skill that they have, but can't go into particular fields and industries. So people think AI is going to get rid of lots of people's jobs. I think it will get rid of some jobs, some things will go, but the personal computer did exactly the same thing. Innovation does that, but it generates more jobs. But what I think it'll also do is it'll open up areas that people can go into they wouldn't have been able to previously do. Which is why I think for teaching, for kind of teaching management, business, marketing, all those kinds of areas, AI is really important. I think bringing AI into those subjects is really important. And it's not just your LLMs. It's not just your ChatGPT. There's your image generation, right? It's also just as important for those kinds of areas as well. So I just thought I'd a little bit of a segue there. Just that's enough talking about me. Okay, so what we're doing with AI at the moment, and this is an active project we're working on. So you'll see down the bottom there, I presented this slide deck last week at a conference, education conference in Spain. Is we're trying to use Gen AI for personalised support and learning for our students. How can we support our students? our time as lecturers and as academics is limited. It's finite. Everyone's time is finite and limited. And we're required to do more and more with less and less, okay? So we've got to do more support for our students with less resource, but we want our students to get a good experience. So that's where I thought, right, how can we utilize this technology to do that? So, is anyone familiar with apps like Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle?
Yeah.
All those kinds of, okay, so you're aware of them. Brightspace, anyone familiar with Brightspace? It's another one.
Moodle time.
Moodle, Blackboard, yeah. They're probably the main ones.
And the classroom.
Yeah, okay, classroom, yeah. So there are VLEs, there are virtual learning environments, right? And what I've done here with some of my co-workers is creating what's called an LTI app. So that's Learning Technologies Interoperability. It's an API, it's a system that sits between Canvas, Blackboard, and any back-end system you want to build. Right? It's the interface between it. And we've created a context-aware system, right? And this context-aware system is basically it's a study buddy through AI, right? And it provides personalized learning to the student, so it will remember all the interactions with the student. It's context-aware, so if I'm on Canvas or Blackboard and I'm in Robotics 101 as a module and I'm talking to my study buddy, my AI study buddy, it will know I'm in Robotics 101 and I want to talk about robotics because it's context aware of where I am on Blackboard or Canvas. We can read lecture materials on Moodle, so as the academic uploads new materials, it will pull them down, it will absorb them, it will learn them, it will read them, and it will be able to then provide support to the student. It can generate learning quizzes. I'll show a quick example of that in a moment. One of the things we need to do with our students is to give them those quizzes, that support. They take a lot of time to create, right? Writing a quiz, a bespoke quiz. This can generate infinite amount of quizzes. Every student might get a different quiz, the same quiz. It can provide on-the-fly feedback, instant feedback, all that kind of stuff, right? With no intervention or no explanation. It knows when assessments are due, so it can prompt the students when they log into Canvas. It can say, you've got an assignment for Robotics 101 due in next week. Do you need some help? Are you ready for it? All that kind of stuff that we hope can support students and improve engagement.
Is this free or should I wait?
It's not publicly available yet. It's still in the development stage, so we're still developing it. We are hoping to push it out as a trial to begin with. So we're looking for partners to try it out. But at the minute, it's very much in its prototype stage. So your VLE on the left, that's your Canvas, your Moodle, your Blackboard, all that kind of stuff. The right-hand side is all the stuff we're familiar with. It's your large language models. We use OLAMA as the particular model. We've got Postgres SQL. The Postgres database is where the context awareness sits. So it logs all the students, all the interactions. So it'll have records for all those interactions with the students. And then the LTI is that interface between the two. And that's how you interface to Canvas. It uses OAuth, which is just a credentials system. And it just sends the students' credentials to our back-end server so we know who we're talking to. Yeah, so that's the system. We also, it's just a diagram of what the system functionally looks like, and some colleagues in the room will be familiar with this. So we also use it to provide bespoke feedback to students, right? And that's what I'm going to focus on at the moment, is about the feedback that we can provide. So here is some feedback to a student, okay? I've anonymised the student name and things. So it's quite detailed feedback, right? It's got a lot of support in there, what the students need to do, how they need to improve their assessment, how they need to do things a bit better. We might have 200, we might have 300, 400 students on a module. Providing that much feedback to 300 or 400 students will take a lot of time, right? That was generated by AI, that feedback. The feedback that was generated by the human, the academic, was that. That was the feedback, right? So the academic generated that feedback, put that feedback into our system, along with the student's submission and the assessment brief. Right? So we gave it those three things: our feedback, the student's submission, the assessment brief, and then we said generate feedback from the student, and that's what it generated. At the moment, because it's still in its trial, we're validating all the feedback, so the feedback is validated by a human to make sure that it's not hallucinating, it's not creating stuff wrong. We kind of go through and validate that to make sure it's accurate. But yeah, so it gives the students some nice, rich, nice, well-written feedback. With the system, I want to take it one step further, and that's what I'm going to focus on for the rest of the slides now, is I want to create novel content for learning and engagement for our students and novel learning engagement feedback. So here is an example of some of the stuff we can do. So I'll get it close so I can read what it says myself. So we give it a prompt. Hello. Oh, where's it gone there? Let me just pause this back. It is, yeah, but more bespoke for each of the students. So it says here, we're going to create a Canvas quiz using an XML file. So Canvas, Blackboard takes an XML file for your quizzes. You can generate them by XML rather than going in the front end. You see, you can do it all back end. So this is all automated. I'll provide you with a template, and I would like you to fill it with example questions on Boolean logic and Java programming. Make sure the formatting is correct and all questions have general feedback as well as specific feedback per answer. All right, so that's the brief we gave to our system. And then there's the XML template. So it generates all that. So it's already kind of populated that for us. So we just take that, and this is now all automated. This is just showing you each of the individual steps. But this is now a fully automated system that's integrated into our LTI. So there it is, and off it goes, and it generates the quiz for us based on the template that it's provided with. And off it pops and generates. Well, I'll just skip for this video's quite long, so I'll skip through. Where are we? Okay, then we upload that to our Canvas. So we copy it, upload it to where Canvas is, so it just goes in the back end of Canvas. This is what we use at the university. And then when the student goes in the front end, what they'll see is their quiz. Let's go. Completed. I just want to get to the quiz to show you what it does. There we go. So there's the quiz, right? It's got 2 questions, only asked it for 2 questions. So the first question, pause it. So the first question the students asked, what is the result of the Boolean expression? And it gives a Boolean expression, true or false, false. And then it gives a question 2, in Java, a string is a primitive data type, true or false? Obviously it's false, it's a class. So you can go through, you can answer those questions, right? So each quiz is different for every single student. So students can't copy off each other. They can work together. What do you think the answer to this is? But they're not just copying someone else's quiz, because every single quiz is bespoke to each individual student. And then as you answer those questions, so we have to think about it. The answer to the first one is false, and the answer to the second one is also false. Yeah. And then we click submit.
This is a combination of ChatGPT and Moodle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's bringing those systems together, absolutely. And then that's what the student gets instantly, straight away, is correct, and it tells them why. The OR operation evaluates to true, but the AND with false makes the final result false. This question tests your understanding of Boolean logic with AND and OR operators, so it tells them kind of where the learning's coming from. And all this is generated from the learning materials that sit on Canvas and our back-end OLAMA and PostgreSQL system. Right? In Java, a string is a primitive data type, true or false? Obviously it's false, correct. A string is a class in Java, not a primitive data type. So it explains it all for them as well, and they can generate as many of them as they want. So through, keep generating them every single week. Okay, so that's the first part of it, right? Is to generate those quizzes, those bespoke learning. Students can go in and support. One of the things through my career, one of the things I've realised through university is getting a lot more students that are declaring learning support needs as we go through. And this is because there's more awareness of it. This is because we're more attuned to the needs of our students. And the expectation of students is increasing on those support plans. They need their support in a particular way. They need their feedback in a particular way. So here is an example of some neurodivergent learning needs. and we're working with psychologists to really kind of make the system work as well as it
And
can.
do you work on the visually impaired?
We can work with, we don't on this particular system at the minute,
Okay.
but we can do. We're working on the hearing impaired at the moment as well. We are working on the visually impaired because we allow this feedback to be generated via
And better
audio.
writing.
Via audio, so any feedback the academic provides, the student can opt to receive it in audio, generated by AI in any voice, any timbre, any volume, any speed. They can choose that, so it can help the visually impaired. Sorry, I've got my visual a little bit wrong with that. So we are working with visually impaired, not audio impaired at the minute. We are looking at audio impaired coming along as well. But yeah, so visually impaired, absolutely. So the challenges we've got is different students learn in different ways. So we write feedback. The way I write is very specific. Umar might write a very different way to the way I write feedback. Okay? And a student reading that feedback might absorb it differently from another student based on a learning need, based on their preferred learning style. Not necessarily, doesn't have to be a neurodivergent learning need. So what we want to do through this tool is provide that support using this technology to students as well. We use UDL, Universal Design for Learning. We can provide flexible assessments, it's sensory friendly. Some students need clear routines and expectations. Some might be visually impaired and need audio. Some might be hearing impaired and need big diagrams, big text, all that kind of stuff. So using our GenAI study buddy, as we call it, what we can do is we can take student feedback. So this is some student feedback that's been written by an academic. Then we can say to our system, provide that feedback to a student that might have dyslexia. Adapt it to a student that might have dyslexia. So we just read the code format one, all right? Just to kind of, we'll compare the two slides. So code format. The code was submitted as a notebook file, not as plain text. Please submit the code as a .py file or paste it as plain text in the appendix next time. All right? So it's giving them instructions on what they need to do and why they might have got a less mark than they wanted. The rationale on the bottom here, you're on the right track. Focus on small improvements in structure and formatting. Don't hesitate to ask for clarification on anything. So bear in mind to just have a quick reread of the code format one again. The code was submitted as a notebook file, not as plain text. Please submit the code as a PY file. Paste it as a plain text next time. That's for the learning traits of someone who might have dyslexia. Someone with ASD, okay, code submission. You've submitted your code as a notebook format, so both the same. According to the brief, so this is referencing the brief, it's telling them why it's giving them that particular type of feedback, because the brief has asked for it. According to the brief, the code must be included as plain text, not screenshots or notebook cells. This affects how your work is assessed. Right? So it's a very different way of giving the same information to the student. They submitted a notebook file, which they were told not to do. They did that, but we provided that feedback in two very different ways to two learning styles and traits of students. And there's other different ways, I don't show them all on here. But here we give the different styles of learning and these are atypical, right? These don't apply to everyone with dyslexia or everyone with ASD or everyone with dyspraxia. These are the typical traits you might identify with those learning styles or neurodivergent
Problem
traits.
is with dyslexia, like.
Sorry?
It's more hard, the first one.
Dyslexia. Yeah. So dyslexia, obviously, they have trouble with words, it jumps around, doesn't it? So you might want to provide feedback very clear, very succinct, just straight to the point, no verboseness around it. So it's, format style, bulleted, clean. So for someone with dyslexia, you just bullet the feedback. But what this allows us to do is two things. One is if a student has a learning support plan, so in the UK, students will submit a learning support plan, academics will read it and see what the kind of needs of the student are. And we can tailor that feedback. So we can say, John Murray, who's got dyslexia, needs his feedback in this way, and the system can do that. Or the students can choose how they want to receive their feedback, in what style they want it. So they don't have to declare to me they've got dyslexia. They might have, they don't want to declare it, but they can choose on the system, give me that in a different format. Give me it in audio, give me it in picture format. All these kinds of different things. I can't do that as an academic. I can't give that particular tailored feedback to students. but this system can. Here's the feedback from our students. So just get the figures right. So the purple colour is, this is based on the feedback of the AI feedback. Purple is the score for the human feedback, and green is the score for the AI feedback. And as you can see, students strongly agreed in every question that the AI feedback was better for them. Made me feel sad because my feedback's not very good. Not a very good lecturer. Yeah, we can see from here, and this was done in one of the studies on one of our modules, that students really liked. So some of the feedback. Question 5, really statistically significant. The feedback was personable. So you look at question 5, it's the first one on the second row. A real improvement there, that students thought the AI was much more personable than the human feedback. I mean, the human feedback was only 3 lines, right? So it's not going to be that personable anyway. But it was more effective, more efficient. Thank you. That kind of leaves it there. I must also thank, I will know the next person on the next slide. I must also thank my colleague, a clown, who worked on this system with me as well. So it's my colleague at the University of Sunderland. That's an AI generated picture of him. He doesn't always look like that. Who worked on development of the system as well. So thank you very much. I'll take questions on any of that. Thank you very much.
So can I set the ball rolling? So, you guys are doing an amazing job, but my biggest concern is, are you not kicking us out of business? Because if AI can give better feedback than the feedback that I give to my students, then why would the university hire me? Because especially when the university are pressed for money and there's redundancy, are we shooting ourselves in the foot?
It's a good question, right? And everyone asks this question. Everyone says AI is going to replace everyone and we're all going to have jobs and all that kind of thing. I'm an academic, so I don't want to lose my job. I want to keep my job as well. I don't see this as replacing academics because the academics need to be there to generate the new knowledge. AI can't, debatable, but it's not generating new learning materials, new knowledge. It's supporting what we're doing as academics, and it's making our work more supportive for students, maybe sometimes more efficient, but I don't think it's ever going to replace the need of having a human to validate what's going on, to engage with the students, to be there to lecture and support the students. What it's doing, in my kind of mind, is it's adding additional value. It's not taking away or removing, it's making it even better. So with your academic, the experience is great. With your academic and AI, the experience is great plus plus. Right? It's a simple plus joke, sorry. But yeah, it's I think that's
Any other question for
Will this web interface be free or it will cost anything?
So as I say, we're still in development stage. It was some point this year that we're going to start rolling it out to all the universities that want to try it in colleges. So give me your contact details and I'll give you a shout. But yeah, it's going to be free for trial this year at some point. But we're still ironing some bugs out of it. It's all locally housed because obviously I don't know about kind of particularly where you work, but the university that I'm working in, they're very GDPR compliant. So you can't put stuff on ChatGPT because that goes on